of the C-Suite, the podcast, is for anyone interested in leadership and the wins, losses, and lessons of being an executive. We are two women who have successfully navigated C-Suite roles and are sharing our experiences. We will be bringing on guests to tell their stories and want to spark honest conversation and discussion, which may include swearing and lots of laughs. Join us on this adventure. Welcome to Secrets of the C-Suite, Season 4. I'm Juliet Clothier, and I'm here with my partner and co-conspirator, Susan Sutherland. Hi, Susan.
Hi, Juliet. Good to see you.
You too. Today's guest is Sarita Parikh, and we're going to introduce her in a minute, but I just wanted to check in with you, Susan, and see what's up and how you're doing.
Well, let's see. I'm doing fine. We're having really crazy weather here in South Africa. The wind's been blowing and it's been raining, which is not appropriate for this season. So that's weird. And I'm in the process of getting ready to do my semi-annual migration back to the San Francisco Bay Area. So suitcases are out, things are in piles, and that pretty much reflects the state of my inner life too. But it'll get better. How are you? What's up with you, Juliet?
I'm good. It seems just like yesterday you were packing in San Francisco and heading back to South Africa. So I, for one, am thrilled that you're coming back to the U.S. because I get to see you in real life, and that'll be fun. I'm doing good. I am, we talked a lot in Season 3 about working, having this new job, working in a school. And I kind of mentioned this to you earlier. I'm so aware of the seasons now. And especially the seasons of kids graduating, freshmen getting excited to be not freshmen anymore. And just it's a different consciousness at work. I'm still in a corporate job. I'm still doing all the CFOO stuff that I've done everywhere else. But there's a different energy in the air. It's stressful. Teachers and parents are kind of fluttering about the school a lot, and trying to get everything in they can. Seniors have basically checked out, which is another interesting place to be, of like, oh, I remember that, I remember that. And lots of parties and events ahead. So it's just really interesting. And I'm trying to, instead of judging it, just observing it and enjoy it a little bit.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that occurs to me, it probably has occurred to you as well, is it's your first full season. So you started after the seniors graduated and moved, like school wasn't in session when you started. So you're experiencing the rhythm and the shift in its full cycle for the first time, which is kind of cool.
It is cool. And right. And I also get it. I'm excited for summer, and I'm always excited for summer because I love paddleboarding and we get out on the river a lot, and there's just a lot of fun and people come to visit. But it's also going to be less to-dos, there's less people on campus. There's, more time for projects and getting things done, and not as many meetings. And so that's also very interesting that the flow of work will change because we have different groups of humans. Yeah. Different human makeup. So interesting.
Yeah. Anyway. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you and getting on the river to paddle too, and hearing more about how your semester has gone.
Yeah, we'll talk about that maybe in another episode too. So with that, I'm going to introduce our guest. Today's guest is Sarita Parikh, an entrepreneur, healthcare professional, advocate, and community leader whose work sits at the intersection of wellness, equity, leadership, and social impact. With more than 20 years of experience across healthcare, nonprofit leadership, and entrepreneurship, Sarita has dedicated her career to creating spaces where people feel supported, empowered, and connected. She is a co-founder of Glow and Gather, a lifestyle and wellness brand rooted in community care, intentional living, and social impact. She also leads initiatives focused on advocacy, healthcare, equity, disability rights, and leadership development for underrepresented and intersectional women, creating spaces that honor non-traditional paths to leadership and success. Over the past 15 months, Sarita's life has been profoundly reshaped by extraordinary personal challenges. These experiences forced a complete reevaluation of priorities, purpose, and identity, ultimately leading her to reinvent both her personal and professional life. Out of that transformation, she recreated mind body play therapies, integrating healing, advocacy, entrepreneurship, and community centered leadership in an even deeper way. Welcome, Sarita.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
I am just thrilled to be talking with you. And we ask most of our guests to start with their journey of how they got to their leadership position. But your journey has been so shifted by what's been going on for you for the past 15 months. So I welcome you to just kind of start with telling us how you got here and incorporating what you feel comfortable incorporating into the story.
Sure. Yeah. My journey has actually, it's been so ever evolving is the good way to put it. And there's just been so many different pieces to it. I started mind, body, and play therapies probably 20 plus years ago as a physical therapy private practice. And from there, probably like 10 years ago, started Glow and Gather and was a little burnt out on healthcare. So shifted directions. And then Glow and Gather just kind of started evolving into being more and more towards like social impact and advocacy. So we once again shifted it into more of a consultancy and advocacy firm. And through that, it just healthcare kept coming back, healthcare and wellness, healthcare and wellness. And so I started, incorporating mind, body, and play and Glow and Gather together in that healthcare space, and doing more public speaking, more leadership conferences. And then about 15 months ago, everything shifted once again. January 21st of 2025, I was run over by a semi truck and sustained a traumatic brain injury. And so all of a sudden, I was the patient for all the healthcare and disability rights I'd been advocating for. I was on the other side of it. And it's not a fun place to be. And I had to do all the rehab. I'm still in a lot of rehab. But that really changed everything because in those with a brain injury, I mean, you just have to sit in the silence for so long and it's so isolating and your world has just turned upside down. I think in the beginning, my cognitive test came back at the 7th percentile and my reading level came back at a 6-year-old or something because I mean, it just, it was so impactful to my brain. I was allowed to walk 20 minutes a day. And initially that 20 minutes took me across my street and back. That's like, I all of a sudden realized I couldn't even hop on one foot. Like all these things, like the things I did as a physical therapist, I'm like, oh, I can't do these things anymore. And I still can't. I mean, my balance has come back, but, we're still right. My heart is so dysregulated. Your brain just controls every part of your body. And so the rehab has been intense and challenging, but it made me navigate the systems that I'd been advocating for. But now it's made me realize even more acutely how difficult it is, how challenging it is, especially when you have something like a brain injury. And if I didn't have the background I had, how much more difficult it would have been for me to know what I needed to ask for. And then in the middle of this, because, life has to continue, right? So you're in the middle of all of this, but you still have to keep going with the everyday and the regular things that you have to do in life. And when you have your own business, I mean, that's a whole different story. Like you have to somehow shut that down or keep that going. Or in my case, my whole world was just dark for months. And everyone's like, don't forget your regular appointments. Don't forget your regular appointments. And my gynecology appointment, I went more because I also had to deal with some pelvic floor dysfunction from the brain injury. And so the end of May, I went and I'm like, I might as well go get, everything done. And my doctor was like, well, you also need a mammogram. And I'm like, no, I can't go for a mammogram right now because I can barely function. I can't even follow instructions right now. I mean, I've had so many MRIs on every part of my body, and I know how hard it is for me to even follow directions. I can't do it yet. He's like, well, I'm just going to put the referral through. I'm like, no. I mean, we have no cancer history in our family. I can skip a year of a mammogram. It's fine. Well, he forced me to go, and I was like, so frustrated. I went and I did it. Well, surprise, I have breast cancer. So in the middle of like a traumatic brain injury that's still very acute, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And it's one of those interesting things because you have an acute brain injury that you're rehabbing from, but now you have to make this choice of, okay, but that actually has to be put aside because now cancer is the primary diagnosis. Um, so I had to now navigate two separate systems, right? Because our healthcare system is very isolated or siloed. And so I will say this about the oncology world. It is amazing, and all healthcare should be like this, of how wonderfully they all work together and make it so easy on you. Um, but so I've had two lumpectomies on my left, and I was scheduled for my second on my left. And the night before, my surgeon called me to cancel the surgery because we'd had an MRI just to make sure, like a couple days before. And she's like, we found something on your right breast now, so we need to like get a biopsy. And I was like, of course you have. I'm like, at this point, can't you just like take it out? She's like, well, no, we don't want to do that. We have, and I'm like, well, fine, but you know it's going to come back something because that's just in my life for like the past,
Right.
like, not even a year yet, right? Like we're talking like 6 months. And she was like, well, let's just get the biopsy. And sure enough, the biopsy came back. It was precancerous enough that they had to take it out. So like my second surgery was like, both sides. And then I had to undergo radiation on my left. And so got through all that. And someone said to me, now that you're done with cancer, like, aren't you going to solve, you can be done. I'm like, no, because now I have to go back to like focusing on brain injury rehab. So like, I'm not done yet. So that's been, and I'm still focusing on the brain injury rehab. Next month, I have all my cancer follow-ups, but it's not like it's completely done either because now it's getting like a lot of pain and stuff on my left breast, which apparently is normal. But it's just been this interesting roller coaster of a year where everything has shifted so completely, the foundation of life. I used to be doing so much advocacy, so much, all these things, and now I'm basically stuck at home doing almost nothing because my brain can't handle it. But in that quiet and in that time, I've realized also with my own experiences, well, I always advocated for patients. I've always done advocacy at the state and federal level and at the personal level, individual level, that our systems still have to change. They still have to be recreated. How we provide healthcare has to change. And some of the most impactful healthcare for me were the providers who just sat there and listened, even if it wasn't their area of expertise, like they just, how are things going? Tell me everything. And then let's think outside the box to how to like make this easier and better, like whatever it is, right? Or, my TBI doctor has been great about solutions outside the box, which is wonderful. And so that really had me sitting down to recreate what mind, body, and play therapies is, and to incorporate so much more of the care navigation and the support, and how do we individualize therapies for like cancer care, traumatic brain injury care? How do we make it more community-based and community and family focused and patient focused, and incorporate those extra pieces? Because the first time I tried to go to the grocery store by myself I was playing grocery cart bumper carts. No one else in the grocery store knew I was playing it, but I was. I should be like, sorry, brain injury, and like, trying to like find things on a shelf because my vision wasn't working and I couldn't track, and like it was overwhelming. And so I think we send people out into the world as healthcare providers without really assessing what their actual needs are based on life, and without giving them the support systems. And so that's what Mind Body Play is being reimagined to. And I think that's where a lot of my public speaking has now moved to. And these leadership conferences that we're creating for women, and these intersectional spaces, and how do we create spaces that you can be vulnerable and connected and supported, to then go out into the world and do what you need to do but you have this feeling of support and community. And you can be vulnerable in those spaces. So then you can go out and do what you need to do.
Amazing. What a story. It's almost like I don't quite know where to start with the next question because there's so much in there. And I think I'd love to have you just explain to our listeners and us what the mind, body, and play therapies are.
So mind, body, and play therapies 20 years ago started, or 20, plus years ago, started as physical therapy private practice, mainly geared towards infants and children. That's, and I did a lot in that time period of individual patient advocacy and working with nonprofits to assist families of these children who are so medically complex. But it really was focused so much on the individual care of infants and children. And I would always go above and beyond, right? Because individual care in that space also meant you are supporting the family because you've got these parents who just had a baby that has all these needs, and how are they navigating that? It meant, like, for a lot of Spanish speaking families, like, they're calling the doctor for them because they're like, they won't, again, navigating spaces like who gets heard, who gets believed, who gets services. Will you call the doctor? Because when I do, they blow me off, or like, how do you support culturally appropriate care? And, my going in there to like an Ethiopian family, and they're like, yes, this is, and I'm like, absolutely. And they're like, yeah, the other white therapist doesn't understand that this is culturally appropriate for us. And, so how do you navigate those spaces? What it has now evolved into over the years is that individual advocacy and support is important, but so is it at a higher level of state and federal advocacy for healthcare policy, because it all trickles down. And so doing a lot of that at the state and federal level for policy work. And now, as I've gone through what I've gone through, really reimagining what mind body play therapies is into incorporating so much more of the care navigation, the community built-in supports. And I've always believed that you're not going to follow through with therapy if it's just a strict exercise regimen. And so over the years, I've also shifted from not just children, but adults as well. And so I know if I incorporate activity-based, and we do things like I take you out on the trails if you love hiking, and we work on balance and strength on a trail, you're going to do that. You're not going to sit at home and do 15 reps of whatever exercise, right? Like, you will incorporate it into your daily life. And if I show you how to do that, you will do it. And so I've always been a strong believer in that. And as I've evolved it over the past year and a half, to the best of my ability, and now I'm saying this as still not able to do much of it, but that it has to be something where we look at, how are you functioning once you get sent home? How are you functioning after an injury in your entire daily life? How are you going to the grocery store? Because that first grocery store trip was a challenge. And so how do we do the supports and the therapy so that you can function in your daily life? How do we assist you with care navigation? Because do you even know what care you need? Sometimes you don't even know. I knew because I was in the system already, as an advocate, as a healthcare provider. But sometimes you don't even know what you need or what questions to ask. So how do we do that so you get the best care possible? And then the therapies, and sometimes the therapy might be like, I tell people all the time, this might be the last thing you need right now. This isn't what your focus is. It's all these other things, and the hierarchy of needs. Yeah, you need to do your therapy because you need to get stronger, but your hierarchy of needs it's down here because you've got to figure out survival first, right? You're in survival mode.
Yeah.
And so you have to figure out surviving. And if we can't support you there, the rest of it's not going to help you. So that's kind of what mind body play therapies has evolved into, along with still the advocacy at the state and federal levels, along with public speaking and bringing that awareness out into the community, and then the leadership conferences, because I think if we can, it's a holistic approach. If you bring in from all the different pieces, you're really creating a system and a community where people can thrive.
It's it's incredible. I think when you were talking about that, I remember going to physical therapy for different things in my life, and after a week, kind of dropping off, and then still having the problem. But I'm not going to lay on the floor for 15 minutes and do this or do that, and then 2 months later, going, oh, it's still a problem. Well, did you go to physical therapy? Yeah, I did. Did it work? Well, I didn't really do it. So I love that incorporating it into what you're already doing and figuring that out it's key. And then also finding out what are the things that are occupying your brain that don't have anything to do with this piece, but the stressors in your life and all the things that come with having to heal your body from something that happened or that's happening. So what a fantastic journey. So I wanted to pivot a little bit and ask you about the women's leadership conferences. And I know you and I talked a little bit about it when we checked in before doing the podcast, but how did those come about, and what have been the kind of central themes there?
Yeah, those have been great. So I am on the board of Women in Sustainability, a nonprofit. And so partnering, excuse me, mind, body, and play therapies with women in sustainability, we've been able to get grants for these women's leadership conferences. And what we really wanted to do was to do it differently, because the traditional path does not work for most women. The traditional leadership conferences are not designed for women, especially underrepresented women from intersectional communities. And so we wanted to really create this space where women who are already leaders in their community can feel supported, they can feel heard, and they can feel empowered, and they can continue to take what they have, the support system, and then take it to continue to lead more effectively. And so we created this leadership conference where it really was about bringing people to the table and where they could immediately feel connected and vulnerable, because I think vulnerability and building that trust is where it starts. And then from that, creating a space where they could connect with each other, they could feel each other's, I think it's so hard when you are a woman of color with an intersectional identity to be able to completely feel at ease and to be able to share who you are, your strengths and your weaknesses, where you need help, because you always feel like you have to overperform. And so to create a space where women could just be and say, oh, I felt that too. Oh, I'm having these issues too. Or this is where I feel like I cannot be vulnerable, or this is where I have to work even harder. And that they could all come together. And we created a space where there was laughter, there was fun. We made, and did things that were just a little different enough that were surprising, that brought that, we're doing this in a leadership and so it kind of made everybody more vulnerable, and that created space for everybody to then really be open about their needs and how they get through. And so we created this leadership conference for building support systems and connection, more than us saying, this is how you do something, this is what leadership looks like, this is, da 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 da, like the traditional ones where, oh, I'm coming in here as an expert and like this is what you do. We really created a space for the individuals to come together and create their own support systems and community, and give them tools, but in a way that was just different enough that they were like, oh, okay. We did a grief rage jar and we burned it at the end of the day. And like, you know, like what are your struggles? What is holding you back? Like put it all in a jar and, you know, and then at the end of the day, oh, we get to burn this? Yes, we do. Like, you know, things that would not happen at a traditional leadership conference. And we never, like, we always made there was always that little surprise element, which always makes you a little bit more vulnerable and, you know, oh, okay. And so I think what was interesting about it was we did it as a 1-day conference. Usually we do it as a 1 day because people are busy. Every time we've heard we wish we had more time and more days, which is very unusual for conferences. I mean, nobody wants multiple days of a conference. So, you know, it's been a really great, and we keep evolving it, we keep changing it a little bit, but the reality is it's more based on creating space of belonging, creating space of joy, creating space of vulnerability for women who don't typically have this space, and creating the support systems for them.
How often do you run these?
It just, you know, it depends on our grants. So we need another grant to do another one, but we've done a couple of them now and they've just been really wonderful. So we're hoping to do another one in the fall.
Yeah. I can see your energy shifts as you talk about what it's like to be in the room and to be a facilitator and leader of an experience that really lets people not only learn, but also find their own way in a way that's safe and compelling for them. It sounds really magical.
It really has been. And I think that's what we heard over and over again. And honestly, I think us showing up that way also helps. You know, I think at the last one, because of my brain injury and the way we set it up was not great for me. And we didn't think about that as much as I advocate for, you know, we should make all spaces accommodating and this and that. We made the space accommodating, but still, I had to take a nap for a 2-hour nap in the middle of it. So I had to leave the room, go on the sofa and take a 2-hour nap. And I came back and I was like, so this is where I was, you know, like I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm not having an issue right now. And and now I have to give my presentation. And my co-facilitator came out to wake me up. She's like, are you going to be able to do this? Because you're on next. And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. You know, she's like, what do you need in order for you to be able to do this right now? And I went in and I was like, honest, I was like, okay, like, I'm going to do this presentation and we're going to do this. And I've just been sleeping for 2 hours. And that's where I was because of my brain injury. And, you know, towards the end, whatever activity I had to run, my co-facilitator was like, okay, well, she was supposed to do this part, but now you're just going to have to bear with me because I'm going to take it over for her because we're going to just let her brain rest, you know? And so like, we were also not like trying to make it something where we showed that we had to be perfect. Like we showed our imperfections, our vulnerabilities, and we're honest, like I can't actually be like my 100% right now. And that's okay.
Yeah.
And that's so important for you to model. I think, you know, what you touched on at the beginning was laughter, and that women were laughing with other women. And my experience of women leaders, and I've been actually talking a lot about this and thinking a lot about it, is somehow along the way, they lose their sense of humor. They have to be so serious. They feel like they have to show up. That professional means not having soft edges, having hard edges. And most of the women leaders I've worked for and worked alongside have had a harshness to them, had really hard edges. And I think it's because you think you have to show up in a certain way in order to get people to take you seriously. You have to be serious in order for people to take you seriously. And that was, you know, I had some models of that, and that was something that I said, I'm just, that's not who I am, and I'm not going to be able to do that. And I think it's so important to help people understand that that is a big part of being a human and a good leader, is showing your humanity.
Oh, absolutely.
Sounds very powerful.
Yeah.
I like the notion of the women practicing that vulnerability and that the softer edges in a setting where they are safe to do so, can maybe grow a buffer zone. I mean, having, my background working in a predominantly male dominated, very, I don't know, left brain, right brain, which is the brain that's very linear, very analytic. That was left brain. So very left brain environment. I don't know that I had sharp edges. I probably did. I'm sure there are lots of people who called me the B word, but there was a sense that you really did. You just kind of had to create a little, like, to put your elbows out, to have enough space in a room if you were the only woman or the only person of color. So, I certainly understand that, how that it affects people in their leadership style. And I love that they get to practice that without taking the big risk the first few times, right? Because then they can go back into whatever environment, no matter how it's structured, and practice their sense of humor and their connection in a way that doesn't feel like their job is at risk, which I think is how a lot of women feel in some of these environments, right? Like I can step sideways and lose my advancement opportunity, where a guy, we all know that, the opposite of that. And for our guy listeners out there, sorry, I'm stereotyping, but it also comes, I'm sure, with hard-won experience for the three of us on this call. So anyway, I just wanted to salute you for recognizing that connectivity, the vulnerability, the laughter, and how that can really help shape how people go back into their community, and especially going back into their corporate, if they're in corporate, in those lives.
Yeah, I think it's so important. And I think you're right. Like we can't do it so easily out in the world where we've been taught so much, or taught like just by experience, right? Like this is how it has to be. And it was one of the women, she said, just by the way you sent the initial emails about the conference, she said, I initially dressed like you have to dress at a conference, but the way you wrote the initial emails made me realize I didn't have to, and I could just come dressed relaxed. And I'm so glad I did. And so, even just that, like how you feel like you have to show up dressed in a certain way, and then you can just come in relaxed. And once you can, and you can just let yourself go and be your authentic, vulnerable self, but how much more space that creates for you to grow as a leader, and how much more support you allow yourself to receive as well as give in that moment. And I think, yes, and then you can take it out into the world again, feeling like you can also come back to this community that you've built for support when you're struggling.
I wonder if you mind, Sarita, going back to sort of thinking, I mean, I just can't imagine how hard it must be in all ways to have dealt with getting hit by a semi and dealing with the repercussions of a traumatic brain injury. And then, of course, breast cancer on top of that. And I just can't help but wonder, in this journey, has there been anything that has surprised and delighted you that you never would have imagined?
It's been, yeah, yes, I think through it all, I mean, it's been challenging, obviously, and it's shifted everything in my life. But I think in some ways, it's also the shift has created a life that I never would have imagined before, right? And in some ways, it's great. I mean, it's been a lot, and it still is a lot of work trying to create this life, because I'm still struggling with the brain injury and how much capacity I have. But in that space, I've been able to really, what is important? Like what are my priorities? Who are my people? Because, again, like you have to grieve the life you had in order to create this new life. And also the people that were in your life that you have to like realize, oh, well, maybe, it's like who stayed and sat with you in the dark. And for me, it was quite literally in the dark because I couldn't handle any light. So who came and sat with me in the dark for all those, I mean, still continuing. So it's really, I think, finding true value in what really matters and what your priorities are and who like where you're going to direct all your energy and simplifying that, right? Like, so now, like my core group of people, like where do I focus my energies, even professionally, and where does that feel good to me? And how do I know that? I mean, I feel like I've always had impact, but like now, can I make it more impactful from a personal experience that I can actually, I feel like, do it from a more personal lived experience and I can kind of really focus. And so I think it's given life more of a focus purpose, maybe, if that's the right way to say it. And it's continuing to evolve because I'm still continuing to heal.
Yeah.
So, but it has been in its own way giving me a lot more just focused purpose and people and energy of where, and that's been nice.
Yeah. Yeah. I was hesitant to ask the question the way I did because, of course, I'm leading the witness. Like, what's been good about this really shit crap experience that you've had? But I also could hear from the moment you started telling us your story that it has been an incredible catalyst
Yeah.
for you. And I think one of the powers of leadership and of humans who show up as fully human all the time is, you take your inspiration where it comes. And to use something as dramatic and difficult for you physically, emotionally, like everything, and actually say, yeah, I can actually do better work because of this. So that's why I asked the question. And again, I apologize for leading the witness, but I wanted to hear you articulate what has come that is good out of this, and because I could feel it. So I hope that's okay and resonates.
No, absolutely. I think, yeah. And I recognize that there is, and I think sometimes it's hard to articulate what it is, and so I'm happy you asked the question. Yeah, sometimes it's hard to, really put it into words. I mean, hopefully I put it into the right words. Not to say there haven't been so many days where I'm just sitting on my sofa crying or like, I think I remember one time my, friend, executive director of women in sustainability, called me at like 1 PM. And she's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Well, I'm sitting on the sofa eating ice cream out of the tub, watching Love is Blind." She's like, "Ah, it's one of those days." I'm like, yes, it is. I don't know. It was like
So relatable.
I'm like cuddled up in a soft blanket. But
Yeah.
there's been a lot of those days too. But which obviously, I mean, has been a very challenging year. But I can also see where the good has come out of it and appreciate the wins and appreciate that I have gotten to, even through all of this and sitting in the quiet, been able to recreate and reimagine so many different things and even do some leadership conferences. I'm not going to say that they've been easy, and I've actually crashed really hard after every single one of them. And I've actually backslid with my brain injury because it was so hard on my brain, to where it's taken weeks to months to recover after I've done one. But to even baseline to what it was before. So it's all been a challenge, but I am grateful that I've had the support system too, to help me do it and like had the ability to imagine and create some of it in the process too.
Yeah.
But nice.
It all feels very circular to me, where you've created these women's leadership conferences. Your career has been focused on getting people access to the things that they need. And I'm hearing, as I said, a circular story where you've done that for others. It came back around, and now you had to look at your life from the outside in and say, how do I create support systems for myself while I'm helping others create support systems for them? It just feels like a path that, while not ideal, has really kind of a lovely music to it. I don't know how to say it. There's something about it that what you brought from your old life, and I'm going to kind of call it your old life, into this world of like, this is what's truly important to me, but also using that to help other people take a moment to think about what's important to them. And I just applaud you for it. We're going to wrap up in a minute. I wanted to ask you if you have a secret for the people who listen to our show. A lot of them are leaders or emerging leaders. And so a secret that you've learned from being a leader and helping other leaders that you might want to share.
Uh, yeah, I think it always just goes back to showing up and being present authentically, and creating spaces for people to be authentic and vulnerable, and creating those spaces of joy and belonging, and with compassion, and empathy, and again, deep listening, versus coming in and having all the answers, knowing that the people around you are going to create the spaces if you give them the support system, and the place to be supported and build that trust.
Yeah, wonderful.
Most important.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you, Sarita, for sharing your story and being vulnerable. And I know that this story is going to be really helpful to our listeners. And it's been great getting to know you today.
Yeah, can I jump in, Juliet?
Yeah,
I
please.
want to appreciate that this probably, spending an hour on live recording with two people you've never met in real life probably wasn't, like maybe sitting with a tub of ice cream would have been an easier way to spend your time. So I want to appreciate that you have come on the podcast and shared so much of yourself, and and how much effort that must have cost you. So thank you. Really, very, very grateful that you joined us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it, speaking with both of you. It's been fun.
Thank you, as always, to our guest. Please stay with us for our post-interview takeaways. Wow. I have to take a breath.
Yeah, she was amazing.
Yeah, I think I didn't want to allude to like, hey, isn't this great this happened to you? Because, you have all these gifts, right? It's like, oh, but just the vulnerability she brought to the story, and that she's telling her story, and the gift that is of what this story is, and her strength in being able to continue to show up for other people. That's the thing, and maybe not in the way she would have liked to before her injuries and her illnesses, but just very powerful, and succinct for having a traumatic brain injury.
Yeah.
Just her thoughts were so clear, and I got a lot out of that conversation. Yeah.
I have to say that I was struck by her resilience, obviously, that she's back at it in the way that she can be increasingly, and then when she works too hard, she has a backslide, as she admitted. And her situation is exceptional in the sense that she got hit by a semi and then had that breast cancer. And if we're lucky in this world, we never have two things happen like that at the same time, right? But all of us are working with the fragile humanity of ourselves. Our bodies don't always work the way we want them to. Our brains aren't always focused. I'm just thinking about women going through menopause. Or me, I'm on this breast cancer drug that gives me hot flashes. You've seen me take my fleece off and on 4 times in a 40-minute podcast. So, we're all dealing with something, and we may or may not know what it is or how safe it is to articulate it. And she just leads with that, because that's how she can help best manage her brain injury and her recovery. So I think what I'm trying to do is sort of piggyback on your observation of how powerful her vulnerability is, and how that becomes a strength and an asset.
Right.
And I don't think that in general we tend to think of vulnerability as a strength.
No, agree. And I think too, her story softens the edges of our expectations, which is a weird, I think, a convoluted way of saying it, but it allows people to hear and sit with her vulnerability, like a leadership story. You come in, well, I did this and I went to school and then I worked my way. And, like our stories, when we talk about our stories, we don't often weave in vulnerability in our stories, right? But she's kind of opened the door to that by saying, here's what my path was. And I was already doing this work. And then this happened to me. And now I'm looking at it at a whole different way. And of course, the navigating the healthcare system was just what a gift that is, that she can bring to other people because she sees what they're experiencing directly. I don't know. I feel like that's changed my view a little bit of this whole, even just our podcast and who we talk to and questions we might ask,
how we talk
other
to them.
people. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So anyway,
Yeah.
thank you.
It's
this was
interesting
great.
I just want to put a coda there, which is, it's interesting how important vulnerability is to trust building. Some of it is showing up and being present, right? Like what she talks about being present, that's a vibe. It's lots of things, but the vulnerability is how people go, oh, I am safe with this person because my fears and vulnerabilities have a place because she's letting them be there. And I think as leaders, we know that conceptually, but we don't always really want to lead with that. So that's my takeaway.
Exactly.
Where can I lead with that in a way that is more authentic and more focused on connection? Like that to me is I'm going to be giving a lot of thought to that.
Me too. Most definitely. Great episode, great conversation. And with that, I'm going to thank our listeners. Please give us 5 stars so others can find us. And I'm going to say, good seeing you, Susan.
Good to see you, Juliet. And come back in 2 weeks for another episode. Fuck, I don't know how to turn this off. We're so glad you've joined us for this episode of Secrets of the C-Suite, the podcast. We'll be back with another episode in 2 weeks. In the meantime, please tell your friends and coworkers about us, and be sure to follow, subscribe, and give us a 5-star rating if you enjoyed listening. Secrets of the C-Suite is produced by Juliet Clothier, Susan Sutherland, and Brian Clothier. Original music is by Brian Clothier, and the podcast is inspired by leaders like you.